It is time for another round of theoretical support for deserving archetypes. First up is an archetype I built a deck for a short while ago, Weather Painters, and it has potential, but like so many archetypes in the game, it feels unfinished. Unfortunately, if history tells us anything with regards to unfinished archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh, unless an anime character suddenly starts running the deck, it will be years before it gets any new support, if it gets any at all. Fortunately, we can at least theoretically explore what should be done to help this deck. One thing painters have going for it is Rainbow brandishes 7 colors, and there are only 6 main deck painters, creating a very real possibility for a 7th monster and corresponding canvas. So what could those 2 cards look like? Starting with the monster first, the Weather Painter Ozone. Light Fairy, level 3, 1200 attack, 1900 defense. You can only control one the Weather Painter Ozone. Once per turn, quick effect, return all face-up the weather spell or trap cards on your field to your hand and or deck. And if you do, banish a number of cards on the field equal to the number of canvases returned until the next standby phase. If the weather spell or trap card is placed on the field by the effect of a weather painter monster, draw 1 card, then discard 1 card from your hand. Once per turn, during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate the weather cards effect, you can special summon this banished card. First, regarding the name, ozone can be a weather related issue. Ozone attempts to address 2 important limitations in the deck right now. First, the ability to actually interrupt the opponent's plays, because let's be rational. All of the top decks in the game over the last few years have had some innate archetype based interruption mechanic. So, for painters to be consistently competitive, they need one as well, and Thunder Canvas certainly does not get the job done. This effect produces mass temporary interruption with the side benefit of having the ability to rearrange your canvases on the field to maximize their usefulness for a given situation. Maybe you have canvas A in a zone you don't want it in. So with this effect, you can return it to your hand and place it in a different zone, which will increase its efficiency on your board. One might be a little annoyed that the interruption effect is not permanent, but I felt to balance the card and maintain the usefulness of the return aspect of the effect, a permanent effect would have been too much. The second effect helps increase the speed of the deck through drawing, as well as help feed the graveyard to increase combo efficiency, and actually makes Rain's effect potentially meaningful. Also, this effect ties together the return effect for even more potential speed. The single control limitation was necessary, I felt, to balance the card, for with 2 effects, the only other painter that has 2 effects in the archetype is the single tribute Aurora, and I felt making this card a tribute monster would not be helpful for the deck. And the canvas, the Weather Ozoni canvas. Continuous spell. The weather effect monsters in your main monster zones of this card's column and its adjacent columns gain this effect. You can banish this card, then send one the weather monster from your deck to your graveyard, and if you do, you can special summon one the weather monster from your deck. This card is unaffected by your spell or trap cards except for this card, and its attack is reduced by 1000. Return any monster summoned by this effect to your hand during the next end phase. Ozone's Canvas addresses the final major problem with the Painter archetype, the lack of swarming ability. For a deck that has a number of smaller monsters which need to rely on swarming to maximize its success, it really doesn't have swarming aspects. Unlike Konami, though, when they make a card like Needle Fiber, I respect the power of from the deck summoning. So while Ozone's Canvas summons from the deck, the presence of the monster is only temporary most of the time. You can still use the monster for link summoning, for tribute bait if you want to bring out Aurora or something else. You just can't jump it out of the way with one of your canvases kind of cheaply keeping it on the field so it comes back during the standby phase, or to make rather cheap looping with this card and the various cards it can bring out from the deck. The graveyard dumping further assists combo playmaking, especially when dumping a monster like Sun. For the second deck, let us look at an archetype that did receive a new Link monster that has very little use in its supposed home deck and is so generic and potentially destructive, it will probably be limited or even outright banned in the future. Time to give Aromage some support that is actually useful. First things first, Aromage need a real boss monster, for Bergamot is nowhere near up to snuff. Aromage Time. Dark Plant, level 8, 2950 attack, 2000 defense. Effect. You can special summon this card from your hand by sending 2 level 6 or lower Aromage monsters from your deck to your graveyard. While your LP is higher than your opponent's, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can return 2 Aromage monsters in your graveyard to your deck to special summon it in defense position. If you gain LP, declare a type of card, monster, spell, or trap. Until your opponent's next end phase, your opponent can only activate one card of the selected type. You can only use this effect once per turn. Time gives Aromages what they are sorely lacking: field presence with the ability to actually take and keep the field. The From the Hand special summon ability allows the deck to establish field presence in bulk, especially with Jasmine's extra normal summons effect. Time's revival effect helps it maintain some control of the field, and by the direct wording of the effect, it can summon itself from the graveyard even when discarded from the hand as cost for, let's say, Twin Twister, or even with a card like Foolish Burial. Finally, it has a specific card activation effect to reduce the ability of the opponent to go off, as it were, to help Aromages keep up with the number of other decks that have this more explosive potential. But it does not have the rather, let's just be frank, BS Shockmaster aspect of the effect of no activation for you at all. And the second card, Ferocious Wind. Normal spell. Until your opponent's second end phase after the activation of this card. Once per turn, quick effect, if a Aromage monster or Wind's spell or trap card is targeted for an attack or effect, negate the attack or effect and inflict 1000 damage to your life points. You can banish this card from your graveyard to select one of the following effects. Add one Wind's trap card in your deck to your hand. Increase your life points by 1000. Ferocious Winds does two important things for Aromages. First, it provides some nice protection for key monsters or spell or trap card effects. Granted, there are only 2 trap cards that can be protected now, but who knows, maybe in the future they'll get some continuous spells. But while it negates effects, it does not destroy the affected cards. Second, it helps speed the acquisition of moist or dry winds, which can be key cards in the archetype. The secondary life point increase effect is useful for triggering Aromage effects, as well as providing life point fuel for the future negation effect if you're low on life points. For example, you could activate this card if you had less than 1000 life points, then use its graveyard banish effect to increase your life points by 1000, and now you have that ability to negate that effect. Well, those are my ideas for expanded support for both the Weather Painter and Aromage archetypes. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.